So this piece is going to be named later. Mm-hmm. We're going to insert title here later. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like right. Do you want to do there? Look, exactly. Title goes there. Okay, and then we'll just explain the rule of the game, which is that every time whoever's talking is holding the camera and shooting the listener, so you never see who's actually talking.
When they're talking.
When they're talking, you only just see the listener or the response. Okay, so, and then the whole idea was I wanted to talk about how one perspective can have more information about something than another perspective. Like, for example, you're Iranian and you know Farsi, right? And then I'm Korean, I know a bit of Korean and some Spanish. And then like we can both learn other I know some code. Do you know code? Coding?
I don't know.
No, okay. I know coding. It's a different language. So we already set up there's differences in information, right? Okay, so what do you think about that?
So I think based on how we grew up with different languages, we have a different way of like communicating for sure, or like seeing things differently. And like I think as you learn more languages, you open up a new door each time. So like now you know coding, so you know a lot more about so many new stuff that I have no idea about. So I think languages are super important, but like also people see things differently in different languages when they know a different language. So, and I think there are some words that are universal, even though like the way that you pronounce them, or like they all have similar, letters. Like for example, mother, it has M. In Farsi it's maman, and in Korean it's 엄마, right? 엄마. They all have the M word in M letter in it. So I feel like it's kind of universal, but it's not at the same time. Do you have an example of a word that is like has a universal letter in it, like something?
A universal letter? Yeah, there's this one. I mean, the word also universal is we're talking about something universal. Mm-hmm. But it's also different in every language, right? Yes. Like you just said. Mm-hmm. So there's in math, there's some symbols, it's called lambda. It's just like almost an A without the middle, mm-hmm. Which is from Greek, yeah. And then that stands for what's called the cosmological constant, mm-hmm. which is the thing in the entire universe that stays the same. Mm-hmm. So Einstein had it, it's part of the equation. And then people right now, people are fighting over what it is. So that's in math. That's one symbol.
So that is universal.
Yeah, it stands for basically. Yeah, okay. In math, it's a value that's supposed to be mathematically universal for the entire universe.
Cool.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy.
What was I gonna say? But interesting because they're talking about the. So one of the problems Einstein was trying to solve was is there a universal value, but then how do we also explain all the differences mm-hmm. that we perceive and live with? So that's why he was making this equation. The
universal value in what?
In the universe.
Oh, in the universe.
Yeah, is it physical?
Something
physically universal in the universe.
Okay.
That was the thing he was trying to explain. He's like, is there a physical universal thing? Mm-hmm. And then also, how do we explain all the differences?
Math is universal.
Well, that's debatable.
It's debatable?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Just depends how you define math. So it's actually in the sciences, the math is actually disconnected from physics.
Okay.
And they rarely talk to each other, actually.
Mm-hmm. Physics and math.
Physics and math are actually So this is why Einstein was interesting. Because he was actually talking to all the different scientists, because they're all all over the place. They don't actually talk to each other. So math doesn't talk to physics. He doesn't talk to computer science.
They don't?
No, that's what you would think. That they're like all connected because they're like the computer science people have to use math, right? The physics people you have to use math.
Yeah.
And then
That's you. Why I felt like they.
you would assume, right?
Yeah.
But they actually don't.
Oh God.
So like,
My friend.
no, it's okay. No problem.
Another question.
Yeah, we have 5 more minutes. Okay. Then what do you? Okay, let's talk about this because there's a lot of assumptions about science. There, people think it's like a whole everybody's on the same team, but it's actually not, and they're also fighting against each other.
Yeah. There is so many things to debate about.
Right.
There's always an opposite side.
Yeah. And it's also like Koreans are like that too.
Like what? In language? No.
No, just like society. Like they're all
yeah.
but they're also all very fighting against each other in certain ways. So
I think it is
riff
like,
off that.
What?
Just tell me what you think. I'll listen.
I think it is the same in Iran too.
Oh yeah.
Even though they're talking the same language and sharing the same culture, there's always two sides or even more sides fighting each other all the time. All the time. Most, I don't know, even in United States.
Yeah.
We have the reds and the blues. And probably so many more in between. They're always fighting. But what did you mean from fighting? Because
they're not actually fighting. They're
I know their ideology is different sometimes.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, but they're also trying to convince each other.
Oh yeah. I wonder what are the two sides you're talking about. For me, let me give you an example. For an example, it's there's a fight always about religion in Iran, or about the government. So there are people who are pro-government, trying to convince the other side that hey, this is the best government, you should just support it. And there are so many more who are against it, and nope, we're not rooting for this and stuff like that. So what kind of fight you were talking about?
Well,
Give me an example in Korea.
In Korea, it's just there's a lot of right now because it's a lot of it is more about social kind of status.
Social status.
Yeah, because it was recently modernized in the 90s, 2000s, and became accumulated. It got up to speed and started to accumulate capital. So then now it's there's a lot of social status type of issues, and then it's actually now art is becoming more significant because it can kind of create cultural bridges between different social groups. Because there's some social groups that have a lot of money and some that don't.
Yeah.
So it's it's also interesting because it's similar to what I was saying is from my research and because I studied art, or I like to say. But from my perspective, I was thinking about Washington D.C. in this area, and I was oh, it's actually in a similar state as Germany in the 1970s, because it was there was a similar stage where it's and also Korea is at a similar state right now. It's certain groups have a lot of money and certain groups don't, and then it's in Germany 1970s, art and culture was used to bridge and spread and share things. Yeah. And then make a healthier society basically. There's this famous guy named Joseph Beuys, and then but it was in London, I think that happened in 1990s. They went through a little bit later, and then now in 2020 in Germany, in Berlin, it's super cool. So it's I always thought DC was gonna look it's pretty much gonna look like Berlin. But not right now, I thought in the future, because when I was in 2000s, I was oh, it's heading towards Berlin.
Okay.
Because in Berlin, it's you get money for just being an artist. You get I don't know, 30 grand a year.
Really?
You just fill out a form and send it to the government. Or I don't know exactly, but you can get just grant money just to live, just for being. You don't even have to make.
In Berlin.
Yeah. In Germany, yeah.
No.
I know. That's great.
Thanks for the information.
Yeah. No problem. But so we don't have it obviously in the DC.
But you feel it's going toward that.
I think it's going toward that. But you know what's super interesting? Okay, so there's Iranians in Berlin, who I've talked to before when I was in grad school, and they're actually a generation ahead of Berlin. They're even farther down the road because and there's also other Iranian intellectuals and curators, artists who are super cool, they're super into like what can new technologies do to even like make things easier, life easier for all and cultural all stuff.
Are you talking about the ones in Germany or like you see curated?
Also in New York City, yeah.
Okay,
New York City
yeah.
and Germany, they're like even ahead of like.
Gosh, in Tehran too. In arts, they're like.
Tell me about it.
Like, it's crazy. Okay. So like right now in Iran, people are using like art is such a big thing. You see so many different types of it all around the capital, and it's crazy because sometimes I feel like it's ahead of many cities in the United States. I'm like, how is that possible? Because whenever you go there, you just get the vibe and you just always go to places that is artsy. And it's like, I think that's their way of coping with the situation and trying to, let their voices be heard, or like using that platform to not cope, I would say, to cope. But they're ahead sometimes, I feel like. So many great artists, which I'm amazed. In Korea too.
Oh,
There are so many amazing artists.
Yeah.
Do you think they're ahead of their...
I think there's more like, so what happens usually in when there's social pressure, people, that's what happens. Like
There
people,
is social pressure.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a lot of pressure, and then usually arts is his way to express things that's difficult in like
Okay.
normal society. But there's another thing of like
You talk to me.
sorry, yeah. So like, and that's what I was interested in. 1970s Germany, and also Europe, and like parts of Canada, and like also northern United States,
Okay.
in New York City. There was this huge kind of like connection.
I'm gonna
Right. We'll
leave
cut it.
you.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice talking.
See ya.
We should continue.
Okay.
Bye.